Thank you for your interest in Blackbird. This product video will demonstrate the key features and services included in a full site license. Let's begin by touring our lessons. Our standards-aligned curriculum is designed with a scaffolded lesson plan comprised of 2 units. Each unit has 5 stages, and each stage is organized in sets of 5. So there's 5 mandatory teaching lessons, 5 optional practice lessons, which are meant to reinforce concepts introduced in the previous 5, a stage review, a vocabulary quiz, and a final challenge lesson. Now let's enter a lesson. Let's explore the lesson Anatomy. We have the code editor on the right that is made up of comments and code. This strategically gets students working in an authentic engineering environment right away. We'll come back to this in a moment. On the left, we see the lesson content. There's a progress bar at the top that tracks the number of tasks in a lesson, an overview of what the student will do in the task, an instructional list of actions to take, and a deep dive drawer that, when opened, will provide context and allow the learner to dive deeper. You'll notice, too, that there are hyperlinks within the lesson text. If you hover over the hyperlink, an info tip pops up to provide more information. If the student wants to dive even deeper, they can click on the hyperlink and our documentation drawer will slide open right into the lesson. This is one of the many design mechanisms that helps maintain learning momentum. If the student has to stop, open a new tab, and hunt through a knowledge base or a resource library, their flow is interrupted and they risk distraction. Now let's look at how the lessons work with the code editor. The goal of Blackbird is to introduce students to text-based programming, and text-based programming is done line by line. This process can be overwhelming to beginners because programs run on millions of lines of code. So in order to introduce this practice in a really manageable way, our code editor is designed to only allow 1 line of code to be written at a time. The green gutter helps accomplish this. It will show if a line of code is editable or not. This is important in terms of the learning experience because it makes it so that a learner cannot accidentally modify a line of code they previously worked through, eliminating unnecessary frustration for beginners. After a student writes a line of code into the code editor, based on the action listed in the To-Do section on the left, they are then prompted to click the Check Code button. If the code is incorrect, they will receive a friendly error message like we're seeing here. This is another key innovation that enhances the learning experience. Blackbird has developed its own programming language optimized for education. The program can quickly communicate what is needed to move on. So in this case, the statement needs to end with a semicolon. The student can make that correction, check the code again, and be greeted with an enthusiastic and encouraging message that celebrates their success. Going back to the topic of error messages, as the learner progresses in the lessons, the error messages become a little less generous. You'll see an example of that here. Instead of providing the solution right away, our virtual mentor is encouraging the learner to approach the problem in a few different ways. They can run or step through the program to see if the solution reveals itself. They can revisit previous lessons and review material, or if they become stuck, they can utilize the Show Me tool. The Show Me button is available to click on the side navigation bar should it be needed, and will display the correct line of code compared to the incorrect code that was entered. The correct line of code will need to be typed into the code editor in order to move forward. Students cannot copy and paste. This restriction is meant to help reinforce learning. There is a caveat to using the Show Me tool, however. If a student chooses to use the Show Me tool, they will not receive a star for that lesson, and stars are a form of currency within Blackbird. They're meant to gamify the experience and motivate the learner. Earning stars will unlock new avatar choices. We have a really fun collection of avatars, and these are just a few from the library that they can choose from. This displays on their dashboard and to their friends. Learners can earn up to 3 stars per lesson or quiz by restarting them. Each time a student revisits a lesson, reinforcement is happening. After all, practice makes programmers. The final feature in our lessons to explore is the canvas. This is where the learner can see their code in action. When they press run, the program is going to execute, or rather, interpret their code and display the canvas like we see here. If we zoom in on the right side of the screen, you'll notice the option to step, which helps to slow things down. Our friendly debugging feature lets you step through code one line at a time, showing you helpful information along the way. At the end of each lesson stage, learners are encouraged to complete a guided project so that they can apply the skills they learned in that stage in a less structured way. Each stage has 3 guided projects to choose from. The feathers denote the level of challenge, so that students can choose based on their comfort level with the material. This environment differs from the lessons in a few different ways. The code editor is no longer protected with the green gutters. Students can delete and modify comments, and they can even add their own lines of code. This provides much more freedom to play and experiment. The other big difference is that the Show Me tool is not available. If they get stuck, the learner is encouraged to revisit lessons. If they cannot figure out how to proceed after reviewing lessons, they can raise their virtual hand for teacher assistance. Teachers have access to their students' guided projects through our code review tool. As mentioned, students can raise their virtual hand to signal to the teacher that they need help, and the teacher can then make comments on their code like you see here. One key detail with this dynamic is that the teachers are provided with the answer key to all guided projects. This segues nicely into the final area of our tour. What we're seeing here is the teacher dashboard, which contains a lesson progress bar, class management tools, and an extensive teacher resource library. The resource library is filled with video tutorials and helpful documentation material. We also offer one-on-one teacher training and ongoing support to our educators so that they feel secure and confident. Teachers in Blackbird also have access to a built-in learning management system, which we see under the Classes tab. This is where they can create classes and upload students. When a teacher clicks on a classroom, they can see student activity in an aggregated way. Teachers can sort by name, activity, time spent on lessons versus workshops, the number of stars they've earned, etc. This provides a general progression trend of the class. Teachers can also see data specific to individual students as well. This view allows the teacher to closely monitor individual progress within each lesson and guided project. Thank you for taking this tour of Blackbird. Please reach out at any time to inquire about a full site license for your school or classroom.